Hey everyone, it's Sevy. In my previous video, I covered some fun Ayato teams for you to try out, but I wanted to make this standalone video talking about the Kamisato siblings and how to make them work best together in a team comp. As Hydro and Cryo DPSs, they are very strong units in themselves, but even more so paired together. Ayaka is played more often as a quick swap burst DPS that deals a huge amount of damage with her burst, while Ayato is an on-field DPS that applies Hydro and deals a lot of damage over time with his skill stance. And due to their elements, these are the makings of a freeze team. So how can we maximize their freeze synergy? Well, like the best freeze teams, it would require another cryo unit who will activate the cryo resonance to give added crit rate, battery the other cryo unit, and provide more cryo application. Then an anemo unit who will shred the enemy's resistance and help spread elemental auras. An anemo unit is the best way to bump up your team's damage since freeze reactions do not yield additional damage multipliers, but are solely used to disable and crowd control enemies. Hence, an anemo unit with the Viridescent Venerer set is a must. Of course, you're free to pair up other teammates with the Kamisatos, like the one I've seen in the comments wherein Toma and Sayu are the other units for a more canon experience. If it works for you and it's fun, then why not? But I'll be focusing on the freeze team comp for this video. Now, what are the possible variations given the freeze team template? Well, if you want the 5-star flex and high damage ceiling team, the top variation involves Ayato, Ayaka, Shenhe, and Kazuha. Shenhe is there to provide a huge cryo damage bump to the team while doing some sub DPS damage of her own if built accordingly. Then Kazuha, being Kazuha, will crowd control and shred enemy resistance while also buffing the team's elemental damage. The potentially big weakness of this team would be the lack of shielding and healing, which is the trade-off for including these specific powerful units. However, a freeze team, if played well, shouldn't take as much damage in the first place given that enemies are going to be disabled most of the time. There are variations that can address such vulnerabilities while also providing cheaper alternatives. If you don't have Shenhe or Kazuha, fear not, because there are great alternatives too. For the cryo alternative, Kaya, Rosaria, and Diona are all very good replacements. Kaya also provides good off-field cryo damage, particle generation, and application, with Rosaria doing all that too, plus her crit rate buff, while Diona does those on top of shielding and healing. Then as for the anemo unit, there's always the default anemo MC. But if you have Jean, Sucrose, or Sayu, they are upgrades over MC and viable alternatives to Kazuha or even Venti. Much better if you have their constellations too, of course. Sayu and Jean also assume the role of a team healer. So now that you have your roster, let me offer some quick build tips. One concern would be their energy recharge, as this team relies on quick swap bursts to ensure smooth rotations and consistent elemental application, so be mindful of their ER stats. I do have some recommended estimates though, but take note that these are for optimizing their rotations. If you don't follow these, then it's fine. But if you want the smoothest rotation possible, building ER on them is essential. Also, these can be dropped lower by equipping certain weapons. For example, Favonius weapons will generate universal particles, or the Amenoma Kageuchi, which refunds energy. So, have around 170% ER on Ayato, since keeping his burst active ensures off-field Hydro application. He also has a higher ER requirement than others since he's the only source of Hydro particles. For Ayaka, have 140% or more ER on her. Then for your second cryo unit, it would depend on their burst cost and weapon. For Shenhe, she would have around 180% ER. For Rosaria or Kaya or Diona, it could be around 140 to 160% ER. Then having 140% ER or higher on your anemo unit is a safe bet. Again, these are not strict ER needs. They can fluctuate depending on the enemy mobs you face and the weapons you equip. Ultimately, you can fine-tune your ER stats to ensure your own smooth rotations. The Favonius weapons are an excellent choice to help address any energy recharge needs. And what's great is that even though Fav weapons need crit rate for the effect, this freeze team at least gets extra crit rate from the cryo resonance. If you can't proc the crit with their skills, then just do normal attacks until you hit the crit. Other quick build tips are related to their artifacts, assuming you can already farm their optimal sets. Ayato is pretty much flexible on his usual sets, while Ayaka's most optimal set is the Blizzard Strayer for allowing you to stack more crit damage. What's great about this is that artifact farming is efficient because you can just stay in the Heart of Depths and Blizzard Strayer domain, rather than farming Ayato's new set or trying to get lucky on Gladiator's pieces. That domain will give you the best value for resin. Then for the second cryo unit, I'd have two recommendations. For Shenhe, you can go either the 2-piece attack combo for the cheapest build. However, one way to optimize Shenhe as both a buffer and sub DPS would be to put a 4-piece noblesse on her. And this could even have crit damage bonus main stats. The reason for this is that noblesse will give you a team-wide attack buff while still buffing Shenhe's support and damage. The same goes for your second cryo unit. Equipping them with a noblesse set is a good idea, especially since this team has no Bennett to provide his attack buff. Or you can have a more substandard Blizzard Strayer full set while Ayaka gets the best pieces. If you don't have full sets yet, then 2-piece combos will work just fine in the meantime. Then lastly, for the animal unit, it's obviously going to be the 4-piece Viridescent set. Now for the rotation. Begin with Shenhe. Use the press skill and burst right away to start reducing cryo resistance and trigger the noblesse set if you have it. Catch the particles to get back some energy. Switch to Kazuha with his skill to crowd control enemies and swirl cryo for the team buff and enemy resistance shred, then use his burst to infuse it with cryo. Switch to Ayato's burst to start applying hydro and freeze enemies. Dash with Ayaka to hit an enemy and get the cryo damage bonus. Then use her skill and burst right after to catch the particles. The enemy should remain frozen as long as Ayato and Ayaka continuously apply cryo and hydro. Switch back to Shenhe and reapply the damage buff on Ayaka's burst. Catch the particles to fill up her burst. Then switch to Kazuha and use his skill to crowd control, swirl, and generate particles. Then switch to Ayato now for his skill and generate energy for him. During this time, there's a lack of cryo application, so be mindful of dodging if necessary. Finally, switch to Ayaka and use her skill and catch the particles. She should have nearly all her energy back or completely filled up. Restart the rotation accordingly. If you're using other cryo or animo units, the rotation should be more or less similar. In fact, Kaya and Rosaria can be directly substituted for Shenhe without changing anything in the rotation. And then Jean or Venti will easily fit in the rotations too. Of course, this is just one rotation recommendation, so experiment to see what works best for you. And that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoy playing the Kamisato siblings together, or at least want to, especially since Ayaka's banner is coming up, do let me know in the comments. I would love to find out. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already for more Genshin Impact guides and content, and I will see you all soon. Take care!